Guys, we got 4 missile warheads on the top of the screen here. They interpret as other things, obviously, but I'm just looking at them as missile warheads for now. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If we break it off here, where the 4th missile warhead would go, then we're left with one line, and the number 3. That's 11-3. That could be November the 3rd, but at the same time, you could have to take the 1, 1, and 3 and add them together to make the number 5. So possibly an interpretation for 11-5. So this warning is for between the 3rd of November and the 5th of November. Remember. The F that I pointed out before is pretty clear in there. It's a darker kind of shade of white that they've drawn it in. And then they've got what looks like an upside down L coming up here in a lighter shade of white. FL, Florida. In this video, the George Bush character, who represents Donald Trump as well, points at Florida, the ocean, the burning house, and the submarine, all in one frame, which I will put it on for you now. 1 second. There. So he points there, so I'm pointing at the house, and pointing at the shark as well. So that's telling me that it's a submarine ballistic launch, or submarine launched ballistic missile from the ocean area around Florida. But at the same time, it's going back to this one. The way that they've drawn it, a smaller missile followed by a slightly larger one, followed by a slightly larger, followed by the largest one, may tell us the size of the missiles themselves, but I think it's actually perception. Because it's a 2D drawing, the smaller images mean that this is further away in the distance than this one is. So if we put that onto the map over here, that would mean technically missile launches in a line along the east coast, which would make sense because this little marking that they've got here, as well as being an interpretation for a gun behind the president's head, which is a representation of Donald Trump, is also a tsunami wave. And that's why it goes over the shark, because the shark is coming out of the tsunami wave, or rather behind the shark, because it's coming out of the tsunami wave. So this is telling us that these 4 missiles that are going to be launched along the coast are going to be into the ocean, and they are what's going to generate the tsunami wave, which the submarines, which the shark represents, are going to follow behind. Now, that I believe is between November the 3rd and November the 5th, day before the elections. And I don't know if Donald Trump's going to be there, but obviously around that time, all the senators, I think they've already decided to go home. The House members have already decided to go home. So most likely Donald Trump will go to Mar-a-Lago, where a day before the elections, you know, he'll probably be holding a rally or something, campaigning, I don't know. But it's likely that he'll be in Florida around that time. So have to put some caution on that. So that's just from the missile there. The shark itself, the mouth is made up of the number 2. And inside of the mouth, we've got all these teeth. And obviously the teeth are drawn in upside down V's. And that could be an interpretation for 11 in terms of the 2 being separated into 2 1s, and 5, the Roman numeral representation of the number 5, being a V. That may be particularly useful if they're putting emphasis on this one here. You can see how it's a bit more blurred than the others and a bit more slanted as well. But saying that, 11-5, it could also represent 11-3, because we do have one tooth that is slightly different from the other 7 here. So if you kind of look at that, you've got the number 2, which could represent 11, and then you've got 7, and the last V, which is 5. Add those 2 together, you've got 12. 1 and 2, you've got 3. That's a longer way of looking at it, so I'm not really looking at it that way. 11-5 may be the representation that we are supposed to look at from this one. But again, you've got the number 2 in the tail here as it goes down, and then you've got the elongated number 3 here. So 2 and 3, 23, or 11, 3. Again, you may have to take that and add it all together, which is 5, so 11, 3, 11, 5. That's why I'm giving both dates. They're both within the October 31st to November 5th time frame anyway, but I'm just trying to pin down certain dates and certain events from these depictions on the board here, and it does seem to have 11, 3, 11, 5 representation to it, as well as with the hangman as well. You've got the X and the X, which is 10 and 10. You can take away the zeros there, and you've got 1 and 1, which is 11. And then you've got the V here, which is obviously again Roman numeral for 5. Or even if you take 10 and 10 and make 20, take away the 0, you've got 2. Break it down into 1 and 1, and again it's 11, 5. But the hangman's body also makes up the word Florida, which is the F right there in the middle. The L you can take there, the O for the head, you've got the R just there, the body and the head make up the I, the line across the mouth and the half of the head make up the D, and the upside down or the V this way, upside down A. So Florida, November 5th, possible connection, something happening there. Obviously we've already had Hurricane Michael there, so there's already large scale devastation. A lot of people have moved out of the area, and that may be beneficial in the long run if something's going to happen on November the 3rd through to or on November the 5th. But also thinking about the George Bush character representing Donald Trump, the letters missing from here, if you're looking at it as they intend you to immediately think, when you look at this hangman word, immediately the first word your mind thinks of is evolution, and that means that the letters I O U are missing. Obviously interprets into many different things. We've looked at all of that, and there's probably more things that we haven't looked at, but I O U are the words that are missing here, or the letters that are missing here. And I just think to myself, with all these rumors about Donald Trump and the Russians helping him, and you know, them having something on him, them helping him to get to the win the elections and get to president, I don't know if that's a representation of Donald Trump representing or owing something to somebody, and that somebody possibly being Vladimir Putin. Obviously, it's not hard to look at the behaviors around Donald Trump and Putin. You can argue, he wants good relations, but he wants good relations with North Korea, he wants good relations with other countries as well, and he attacks them verbally and on Twitter, but not so with Putin. So you have to think to yourself, why is that? And it's not just because you want good relations. China, you're happy to tweet at them. So what is it about Russia? What is it about Putin in particular? Not just Russia, but Putin himself. And as I've said before, I think that the ghost image that they've drawn here of a man is Putin. And I think he's going to be the one responsible for launching this missile, or these missiles, into the ocean to generate the tsunami, which the submarines follow behind. I can't say if Donald Trump actually owes Vladimir Putin something. But in this scene here, if we're keeping our mind on the IOU that's in the background here, just barely, but they've made sure that it's part of this frame, he then sticks his middle finger up, which is, you know, basically flipping off, but it's reversed. So he's flipping off someone behind him. And as I said, the interpretation for the only human image that they have on the chalkboard here in ghost image, I should have really brought it up when I've defined it, but just here you can see there's a ghost image here, and to me, when I first saw it, I said it looks like Vladimir Putin. I don't know how I can see that, but I'm just telling you guys what I see. Vladimir Putin responsible for launching these 4 missiles along the coast. As I said, perception, so the smaller one is further into the distance along the east coast, generating the tsunami, which again is represented here. You can just see the faint lines here, but again at the same time that's representing a gun, and the submarines follow behind. one more thing is, obviously, if the George Bush character who represents Donald Trump is owing somebody something and flipping them off and saying basically, I'm not paying you back for that, then yeah, that's fine. If you look at his eyebrow here, you guys can pause it and just look at the eyebrow and see if you see anything, and then you can start playing the video again, because I'm going to tell you what I see. I see a man lying on his back, leg bent, that's the arm, this would be the chest area, this is the head, and the iconic hair that they always draw for Donald Trump. The kind of blondish hair, obviously it's not blonde, it's a lighter grey, but that's the kind of colour scheme they've gone with, but it's lighter, so, and it extends slightly above or forward from where the face is, and that's the Donald Trump representation. Now, as we know, we've seen the video that I posted in the last video with the Donald Trump character, or the Donald Trump twin. It could be Donald Trump himself, just trying to get away from the paparazzi or whatever. But either way, there's people out there that look like him, there's people out there that impersonate him, so it's possible that something could occur the 3rd of November or the 5th of November in association with Florida and Donald Trump, and it could just be someone else that looks like him that's put there, while, I don't know, these elite people, these billionaires and everything else, they're going to hiding or go underground while the world goes crazy on the surface. Again, just another representation of a possible connection to maybe November 5. This could be an N that they're representing here, and then here, if you look, it could be the number 5 just on its side. If you move it anti-clockwise 45 degrees, then that's the representation of the number 5 on its side. So that's, I think, all I wanted to bring to you guys, just the possibility of Florida, which may be represented in the missile with the F and the upside down L that they've got here, taking the 4 missiles and posting them up along the east coast. That leaves 11 free, or could have to add them together to make number 5, 11-5. Either way, between 11-3 and 11-5. The same thing with the shark, the 2, the elongated 3, 11-3, or possibly 2 and the V, which is 11-5. 11-5 again, X, 10-10, take away the zeros, 1-1, the V, 5, again, Florida, FLORIDA. Be very careful, because I don't have any confirmation or any certain way of, saying that this is correct. I'd, not want to advise people to leave their homes and stuff like that, but exercise extra caution. As I said, the earliest indicator you'll probably get of something being wrong is either if you live along the coast and see something, or if you feel an earthquake or a series of earthquakes along the east coast, then I would suggest you move inland and up, elevate as quickly as possible. If you're unable to do that, then either way, even if you are able to do that, just pray and make sure that you're holding on to Jesus in those moments, so if anything does happen, you know exactly where you're going. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.